Do you believe that what she wants is peace? Do you really think that what she expects from you is balance, predictability, emotional security? Then maybe you still don't understand the game being played inside her mind and inside yours. Carl Jung would warn, with surgical coldness, that the female psyche carries secrets that her own consciousness denies, desires that are born in darkness, in the shadow, in that territory where love and danger are one and the same. She tells you that she wants a kind man, a man who is present, a man who listens, who understands, who is always there. But in the silence, in what she will never confess out loud, what she really wants is the opposite. She wants tension, she wants conflict, she wants to feel that you could leave at any moment, because it is in this abyss between what she says she wants and what her soul really seeks that true desire is born. Jung would call this the anima paradox, the unconscious feminine impulse, for a man who represents not comfort, but a symbolic threat, not sweetness, but unbreakable strength. And you, how many times have you asked yourself, why did she lose interest just when you did everything right? Why did she cool off at the exact moment when you became more available? Why, the more you gave yourself, the more she pulled away. The answer is here, in what Jung saw, when he delved into the depths of the collective unconscious. She is not looking for a man who hands her his heart on a plate. She wants someone who knows how to contain his own desire, someone who does not bend, someone who, even when in love, remains whole. Is it painful to hear this? Perhaps. But you came here looking for the truth, didn't you? Then know that from here on, there is no turning back. What Carl Jung is about to reveal to you may change the way you see all your previous relationships. It will force you to review every gesture, every message, every request for attention you ever made. And maybe, when you finish this video, you'll realize that what drove her away was never a lack of love. It was the absence of your own shadow. Now, take a deep breath, because what comes next is not advice, it's a warning, and it can save you from losing not only her, but what little remains of your masculine identity. Carl Jung knew that human attraction is not built on what is said, but on what is denied, repressed, hidden. And when it comes to female desire, the truth is even more brutal. Jung saw the anima as an archetype of conflict, an internal battlefield between what a woman believes she wants and what her unconscious screams inside, without her even understanding it. That's why, when you become the predictable man, the one who gives in, who comforts, who tries to please at every sign of tension, you cease to be what she desires. She doesn't want a man who is easy to figure out. She wants mystery. She wants resistance. She wants the man who remains centered, even in the face of her emotional chaos. 1. She doesn't want peace. She wants tension. Jung would call this the unconscious impulse for generative conflict. While you try to offer stability, she seeks emotional instability. Not because she's cruel, but because it's there, in the realm of uncertainty. That female desire is born and flourishes. She needs to feel that you can leave. She needs to live with the doubt that you don't really need her to exist. The man who remains calm when she provokes him, who doesn't react when she threatens to walk away, who doesn't chase after her when she closes herself off. This is the man who ignites what is most primitive in her psyche. The man who offers peace all the time, without tension, without limits, without posture, is the man she quickly forgets. 2. She doesn't respond to what is safe. She connects with what is dangerous. Jung saw the dangerous masculine not as the one who attacks, but as the one who does not depend. Danger Here is the representation of uncontrollable energy, the man who cannot be molded, the one who does not bend out of fear of losing, who does not negotiate his own values. She will test your limits, she will provoke, she will create emotional games, and if you give in, if you try to compensate with more affection, more availability, more promises, you will only reinforce the feeling that you are predictable. She doesn't want that. She wants to look at you and feel that she could lose you. She wants to feel that you are your own person and that she needs to earn your space. Jung would call this the valuation drive, an unconscious movement where a woman needs to recognize that she is facing someone who cannot be bought emotionally. 3. She doesn't want a man who needs her. She wants a man who chooses to stay there. Is a huge difference between needing and choosing. A man who lives to please, who shapes his own identity to fit her desires, is a man who loses all his magnetism. Jung saw this as a reversal of archetypal roles. The man who abandons his mission, his discipline, his presence, in exchange for emotional acceptance, is the man who turns the relationship into a field of repulsion. She doesn't want someone who puts her at the absolute center of his life. She wants someone who has a center, who exists, who builds, independently of her. Desire, according to Jung, is born from unconscious admiration for someone who is whole in themselves. A woman wants to be chosen by a man who could leave, but decides to stay, not out of need, but out of choice. 4. She reacts to your center, not to your availability. Have you ever noticed how, the more available you are, the less she wants you? Jung would tell you, this is predictable. The female unconscious is attracted to what is scarce, to what maintains tension. When you are always present, always accessible, always ready to say yes, you kill the magnetic field of the relationship. She needs to feel that your attention is an achievement, that your presence is a prize, that your validation is something she must earn, not something she can demand at any moment. The man who gives everything, who kneels emotionally, becomes invisible to her unconscious, and she, without understanding why, begins to despise you. 5. She wants to test your ability to remain unshaken. And here, Jung would be relentless. The test is inevitable. She will create emotional barriers. She will provoke jealousy. She will disappear when you show the most affection. She will create situations where your insecurity screams to see if you remain intact or if you implode inside. The man who passes these tests is the one who does not react with desperation, who does not change his tone of voice, who does not send desperate messages, who doesn't try to win her back with flowers, dinners, promises. He simply observes, he stays, and if necessary, he withdraws with dignity. Jung would call this the archetype of the king, the one who does not move to the sound of other people's emotions, but to the rhythm of his own conscience. And the cruelest truth that you need to swallow now is that the more you try to prove your worth to her, the less she will see you as a man worthy of being followed. So far, how are you feeling? If you want, tell me in the comments. Because your story may be the mirror that another man needs to face. Carl Jung knew that a man who seeks love before seeking purpose is doomed to be rejected. And you may still be caught in this trap, believing that your vulnerability will awaken her care, that your emotional confessions will make her see how special you are, that your proofs of loyalty will finally touch her heart. But Jung would tell you, with the coldness of someone who understood the unconscious games of the female psyche, you are only digging your own grave. She doesn't want a man who exposes himself too much. She doesn't want a man who opens up expecting comfort. She wants a man who carries his own monsters and knows how to tame them, without making her his emotional therapist. The archetype she desires is that of the silent warrior, the man who feels but does not bend, who suffers but does not beg, who loves but does not plead. And that is exactly why she tests your limits. She creates distance to see if you will chase after her. She provokes arguments to see if you will lose control. She disappears just to see if you panic. Jung would call this an archetypal compulsion for validation of masculinity, an unconscious dance where the woman wants to make sure that the man she has chosen is emotionally unbreakable. But what do most men do? They give in, they run, they cry, they humiliate themselves. And that's the exact moment when her desire dies. You need to understand that every time you despair, every time you send one last message, every time you try to prove how important she is, you are, in her eyes, lowering yourself on the throne of your own psyche. Jung would show you, clearly, that women only respect men who remain centered, who don't react on impulse, who don't beg for affection, who don't beg for emotional crumbs, the one who, if necessary, turns his back without looking back. That is the energy that awakens her soul, the energy that makes her look at you with the eyes of someone who sees not just any man, but a force she can't control. And it is exactly there, in that field of silent tension, that desire is reborn. Do you think that always being accessible is the way? Jung would shout at you. It's just the opposite. You need to be a mystery. You need to be the one who, even in silence, is remembered, the one who, even when absent, continues to occupy space inside her. And you know what's even crueler? She herself doesn't understand why she feels this way. She can't explain why she feels more attracted when you're distant, more involved when you seem unattainable, more willing when you finally show that you have other priorities besides her. It's her unconscious reacting to the archetype you've activated, the archetype of the man who leads, who commands, who lives with or without her. Jung would teach you that this is true masculine power. It's not physical strength, it's not shouting, it's not aggressive control, it's inner mastery. It's when you say, with your actions, that your world doesn't revolve around anyone else. And here, perhaps, comes the hardest blow. You are not losing women because you are ugly, poor, or because you are not good enough. You are losing because your energy screams neediness. Your posture begs for acceptance. Your gaze betrays your emotional dependence. Jung would tell you that a man who seeks to be loved at any cost has already lost before he even begins. So, what to do? Stop, breathe, rebuild, return to your center, revisit your mission, rediscover what moves you beyond winning her over. Because as long as you are a man who seeks validation, she will continue to test you, provoke you, and, in the end, leave you. But the moment you return to yourself, something changes. The game turns around, the magnetism returns, and she, for the first time, will realize that she may lose you. And that's exactly when she begins to desire what she once despised. Because Jung knew that what women desire is not the man who gives everything, but the one who remains whole, even when everything around him tries to break him. So far, how are you feeling? If you want, tell me in the comments, because your story may be the sign that another man needs to hear. Carl Jung would never allow you to continue in this cycle of self-sabotage without one last lesson, the most painful and the most liberating. He would tell you that the problem was never her. It was never the unanswered messages, the strategic silences, the emotional games. The real problem was always you. Your lack of purpose, your dependence on approval, your weakness in standing firm, when the whole world seemed to be pushing you into emotional submission. Jung would call this a collapse of the self, a state where a man, out of fear of rejection, abandons his own identity. And do you know what the inevitable result is? She stops respecting you, and without respect, there is no desire. You can try to compensate with gifts. You can make endless declarations. You can promise her the world. But the truth, the one that burns deep in your soul, is that none of these strategies will work. Because as long as you continue to orbit her emotional world, as long as your happiness continues to depend on her validation, you will remain invisible to the eyes of the feminine unconscious. Jung saw this as archetypal suicide. The man who kills his essence, thinking that this will make him worthy of love. But the reality is that female desire only awakens in the presence of a man who is emotionally sovereign, the man who is unshaken, who does not react to provocation, who does not chase after those who do not value him, who, if necessary, chooses silence, distance, absence, not out of pride, but for psychic protection, out of respect for himself. Jung knew that a woman only gives herself when she feels she is in front of someone who does not need her, but who chooses her. And you, what have you been doing? Have you been choosing? Or have you been begging? Have you taken a stand? Or have you backed down every time she tests you? How many times have you said it would be the last time, but gave in again? How many times have you promised you would leave, but stayed, waiting for crumbs? Jung would call this unconscious emotional dependence, an invisible but devastating prison. And it is at this point that you need to make the most difficult decision of all. Either you continue to be the man she manipulates, or you become the man she fears losing. But understand, she won't give you permission to change. She'll test you even more. She'll double the intensity of her provocations. She'll create even more tension. Because her unconscious mind is used to seeing you as weak. And when you start to change, she'll get scared. She'll accuse you of being different. She'll call you cold, insensitive, selfish. But Jung would tell you, very clearly, this is a sign that you're on the right track. When she starts complaining about your change, it's because she's finally feeling the imminent loss. And at that moment, you have to stay firm, silent, unshakable, because only then does respect begin to grow. And respect is the soil where true desire flourishes. She won't admit it. But when she sees you focused, busy, centered, she feels it. She feels the absence of your former weakness, and for the first time, she begins to see you as a man. A real man. Jung would call this the awakening of archetypal masculine energy. That state where you don't have to prove anything, because your mere presence says it all. It's not about shouting. It's not about threatening. It's about existing with such strength that she understands that the choice now is hers, to follow you or lose you. And you know what's ironic? When she feels that, most choose to follow. Not out of fear, but out of instinct, because deep down, this is exactly the man she was looking for. While she was testing you, while she was provoking you, while she was pushing you away, she wanted to make sure that you weren't just another guy. And when you prove, with actions, with silence, with focus, that you're not, the game is over, and respect finally begins. Carl Jung would leave you one last warning, the hardest one to accept. She's not rejecting you because you're not good enough. She's rejecting you because you're no longer interesting to her unconscious. And that's the part that hurts. It's not about beauty. It's not about money. It's not about how many flowers you gave her, or how many times you said, "I love you." It's about the energy you carry when you walk into a room. It's about the look in your eyes when you know that you have a greater mission than pleasing someone else. It's about the silence that says, "I can live without you, but I choose to stay as long as it makes sense." Jung would call this emotional sovereignty. And that's it. Exactly that. That makes a woman feel she's standing before a man, and not just another lost boy. You need to understand that your unlimited emotional availability, your attempt to fill every gap in her attention, your rush to answer every question, only feed one thing, the certainty that you have no center, and a woman cannot truly give herself to someone who has no center. She may play, test, manipulate, but respect, desire, follow, never. So now, there's only one question left. Are you going to continue in this cycle, destroying yourself with every ignored message, every failed test, every night of anxiety waiting for a response that never comes? Or are you going to do what Jung would yell at you if he were here in front of you? Go back to yourself. Build up your emotional backbone. Rebuild your presence. Become the man. She can't bend. Not to hurt her, not to punish her, but to finally be seen, be respected, to be desired, not for your words, but for your stance. This is the moment of decision. Do you continue to be the predictable man, emotionally available, needy, and disposable? Or are you reborn as someone she will never forget? The choice, as always, is yours. Like, if you're back. Comment if you're still on the path. And share with those who need to be saved from themselves. Because maybe there is another man right now, just like you, about to lose himself to someone who never deserved the best of him.